Welcome to OOTO TV, the out-of-the-office investigation from the past into the future of health. This time we're discussing dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm really looking forward to this investigation today. We're zeroing in on something that really cuts to the core of how we interact. Dishonesty, deception, lack of sincerity. It's not just, the big obvious lies. It's the subtle stuff, too. How it ripples through our personal lives, our friendships, our families, and definitely our professional lives. I find it fascinating just how much this stuff is around us, sometimes without us even, fully clocking it.
You've really hit on something vital there. It's absolutely critical. And our mission today really is to explore all the different sides of these behaviors. We'll look at the subtle signs, the first hints that something's maybe not quite right, but also the really devastating consequences, which can be, frankly, far-reaching. But, and this is key, we're not just pointing out problems. We want to look at what we can actually do. Find concrete steps to build environments based on truth and trust.
Right, build that foundation. So for this exploration, we've got a bit of a roadmap. We'll kick off by defining what we actually mean by these terms: dishonesty, deception, and sincerity. What's the difference? And what are the common signs, especially in, personal interactions? Then we'll pivot, look at the professional world, the workplace. We'll examine those fatal consequences you mentioned, the impact when there's just no accountability on businesses, careers, people's well-being. And then, finally, solutions. Really practical strategies. How do we actually cultivate honesty and sincerity and real accountability in all parts of life? Understanding dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work affects relationships, professional decisions, and actions. Okay, so here's where it really starts to get interesting. We tend to think of dishonesty as like massive lies, but it's usually much more subtle, more pervasive, isn't it? Before we jump into the science, maybe we should quickly pin down these words so we're all clear. Like dishonesty, that's just the general lack of truthfulness, right? The tendency. Deception feels more active, like deliberately misleading someone, either lying outright or, crucially, holding back info someone kind of deserves to know. And insincerity, that feels different again, like a lack of real feeling behind it all. It's more of a performance.
That's a really useful distinction. It helps frame it. And what's fascinating, if you connect this to personality science, is how fundamental sincerity actually is. Our sources bring up the HEXACO model. It's a big framework in personality research, and it has honesty, humility as one of its 6 basic traits. Think of it as a scale. High scores are genuinely sincere, fair, pretty modest. Low scores, they're more likely to manipulate for personal gain, break rules, feel entitled. And get this, it's strongly negatively correlated with the dark triad traits. Narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism. So we're talking about people who are often pretty self-centered, manipulative, maybe lacking empathy, can be quite deeply rooted in character.
Wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. It gives context for why some people might lean this way more. But when you're just, talking to someone day to day, how do you actually spot it? Gut feelings are one thing, but the sources point to clearer signs, right? Like inconsistent body language, that's a big one. Someone says they're thrilled, but their eyes are dead. Or they avoid eye contact when things get serious. The nonverbals just don't match the words. It signals that disconnect, doesn't it?
It's exactly that gut feeling, isn't it? Something feels off. Even if you can't immediately say why, the body often tells the truth when words don't.
Precisely. And another one is excessive flattery. Compliments are nice, sure, but when it's constant, over the top, and maybe not very specific, it often feels like a tool, to win favor, get something, maybe distract you.
Yeah, distract you from their real intentions, perhaps. Genuine compliments feel different. They're specific, earned, not just wallpaper.
Right. Wallpaper praise. I like that. Then there's how they connect, or rather how they don't. They're rarely the first to reach out. They might seem interested when you call or text, but you notice. It's always you making the first move. And real relationships need that mutual effort, obviously.
And a huge red flag, often tied into all this, is a consistent lack of empathy. It's like they struggle to really grasp or share your feelings. They might seem bored by your stories, your problems. Our brains have this amazing thing, the mirror neuron system. It helps us, intuitively feel what others feel. So if that's consistently missing, it suggests a real lack of engagement, a disconnect from basic human connection.
It's so telling. And practically speaking, they're often quick to break promises. For most of us, a promise means something, right? It's a commitment. But for someone insincere, those words, they can be pretty empty. Shows how little they value the relationship or your trust. You might also see them seeming perfect, which, let's be real, nobody is.
Right, perfection's a myth, a total facade.
Exactly. So if someone seems flawless all the time, they might be working really hard to hide their true self, their flaws, their vulnerabilities. Our imperfections are what make us real, aren't they? Allow us to grow.
Absolutely. Authenticity lies in imperfection.
And finally, they often avoid serious conversations. Real connection means talking about the good and the bad. But insincere people, they tend to keep things light, superficial, maybe because they're not invested. Or maybe they have something to hide. Okay, this next bit is where it gets really, really interesting for me. The actual phrases people use. The sources point out specific things people say that often scream insincere, like when someone says, trust me, or believe me.
Alarm bells.
Right. It often means they know you might doubt them. They're trying to force trust, not earn it. Or, I'm not going to lie, or to be honest.
Yeah, those are classics. It implies honesty is like an optional extra for them, not the default.
Exactly. Makes you wonder about all the other times they weren't being honest, doesn't it? So is that seed of doubt.
It's almost like they're slagging it themselves, aren't they? Trying to add this layer of reassurance that just feels fake.
Totally fake. Then there's just saying. Hear that a lot, usually after something kind of harsh or critical.
The get out of jail free card.
Pretty much. Trying to soften the blow, dodge responsibility for what they just said, and the ultimate classic, no offense, but, which always means offense is coming.
Guaranteed. Every single time. It's a completely transparent attempt to say something mean and not get called out.
Doesn't work, does it? Another one is, I don't usually say this.
Oh, really?
Huh.
Trying to make their words seem extra special, more valuable.
Yeah, like they're doing you a huge favor by sharing this rare insight. It feels manipulative. And lastly, when I mean it, or honestly, get thrown around constantly.
Overkill. It actually makes you question their authenticity even more. Suggests they know their words often don't line up with their actions. So if we pull back and look at the bigger picture here, all these little tills, these patterns, lies and secrets in personal relationships, they don't just feel bad. They cause serious, lasting damage. First off, they absolutely block real intimacy. You can't have true closeness without trust and honesty. Secrets build walls, period. And it almost always leads to an escalation of lies. One lie needs another to prop it up, then another. It becomes this tangled, exhausting web. And the longer it goes on, the worse the fallout when the truth inevitably surfaces. You're listening to OOTO TV with research by author Paul Bulow. Plus, think about the psychological distress on the person keeping the secret. It's immense. The sources talk about constant guilt, anxiety, discomfort. It can make people avoidant, preoccupied, maybe even start fights just to create distance. Because violating your own values creates this horrible inner conflict. Guilt, then shame. It eats away at your self-esteem. And believe it or not, research shows this stress can even cause actual physical health problems and the person being deceived, the victim. The trauma is profound. They feel confused, anxious, angry, suspicious, like the rug's been pulled out from under them. They start doubting themselves, their reality. Their whole image of their partner shatters. It often takes therapy to recover.
You know, it's interesting. People often justify white lies, don't they? Thinking they're protecting someone's feelings, avoiding conflict, like they're doing the relationship a favor. But it seems like, based on what we're seeing, even those small deceptions, those little omissions, they just chip away. They erode the foundation. Our sources are clear. Deception isn't just active lying. It's also holding back important information someone has a right to. That silence can be just as destructive.
Dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work is extremely harmful and destructive. Okay, so let's pivot now. Let's shift our focus to the professional world, the workplace. Because here, the stakes can be incredibly high. The ripple effects, devastating. We really are talking about potentially fatal consequences here.
Yeah, that phrase really hits home. Our source on the 5 real consequences of dishonesty at the workplace paints a pretty grim picture. First, it forces people to build a false persona, constantly pretending to be someone you're not. Whether it's to impress, fit in, or hide something, it leads to serious mental health issues. Depression, anxiety, that constant feeling of mistrust, it's isolating.
Isolating from colleagues, friends, family, even from yourself, really, creates this deep inner conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, it inevitably leads to complexities. That ethical slippery slope idea. One lie needs another, then another. It creates this fragile, tangled mess.
Especially in business, right? With emails, documents, digital footprints, it's almost impossible to keep the story straight forever.
Totally. And when it unravels, which it usually does, the consequences are way worse than just owning up initially.
That intricate web, it's unsustainable. The mental energy alone must be crushing.
For sure. Third, the obvious one, the deception of trust. Our sources use that analogy of trust being like glass, takes ages to build, shatters in a second, and you can never really piece it back together perfectly.
And it's contagious, too, isn't it? Deceptive behavior can spread, like through teams or in groups where it gets sort of normalized.
Yeah, that's scary. Fourth, it just ruins business reputation. It's not if lies get found out, it's when, and the fallout. It can be massive. Financial ruin, public humiliation, even jail time for leaders in serious cases. Rebuilding a trashed reputation is incredibly hard, maybe impossible.
And finally, the big one. It can ultimately destroy your business, full stop. Ethical slips, those harmless white lies, cutting corners, they put the whole thing at risk. Public trust evaporates. Employees leave. Stocks tank. Partners walk away. Customers disappear. That survey finding is stark, isn't it? 74% base stock buying on ethics, 80% base purchasing decisions on ethics. You lose your ethics, you lose your reputation. You pretty much lose everything.
Wow. Okay, so beyond those 5 direct consequences, what about the broader impact, the systemic stuff?
Well, that's where the numbers get really staggering. One source estimates that organizations lose around $3.5 trillion every single year, globally, due to deception and fraud.
3.5 trillion, that's mind-boggling.
It is, and that's just the measurable financial cost. It doesn't even touch the hidden damage, the impact on the overall climate, on morale, satisfaction, productivity. When trust is gone, everyone gets defensive, cautious, afraid of being betrayed. The whole organization just grinds to a halt. It kills effectiveness, kills innovation.
So what drives it all? Why do people lie at work? Is it just bad apples, or is it the barrel?
It seems to be both, really, a mix of individual factors and the environment. On the individual side, yes, some people are just more inclined towards being selfish, manipulative, lower on that honesty-humility scale we mentioned. But even generally honest people can have that dual nature. Under pressure, faced with temptation, a more competitive, self-serving side might emerge.
Right, the situation matters.
Hugely. And the workplace environment itself can be a massive catalyst. Think about unrealistic targets, cutthroat competition, really harsh penalties for mistakes, incentive schemes that accidentally reward bad behavior. All that pressure can push good people towards dishonesty. And if leaders themselves are secretive, lack transparency, try to control things through information hoarding, well, that just poisons the well for everyone. Destroys trust from the top down. You're listening to OOTO TV with research by author Paul Biolo.
That systemic aspect, it's really powerful. The Making Sense of Workplace Deception article breaks this down further, doesn't it, into different types.
It does, yes. It highlights how baked-in deception can become. First, there's corrupt system deception. This is where lying is almost necessary just to survive. Those really toxic, cutthroat cultures, where managers might even encourage vagueness so they can avoid blame later, or bonuses are tied to fudging the numbers. Honest employees in those places, they get incredibly stressed. They either conform, start playing the game, or they just check out, disengage.
Ugh. Or there's the CYA deception, cover your well.
Exactly. Cover your anatomy. These are defensive lies. Used to avoid getting in trouble for genuine mistakes. You see it a lot in really complex organizations where it's easy to pass the buck. Often happens because employees feel like there's no safe way to admit an error without facing serious punishment.
That really shows how the system itself can force dishonesty, doesn't it? Creates the need for it.
It absolutely can. Then third, there's personal gain deception, which the sources say is actually the most common type. This is deliberately deceiving people to get ahead, sabotaging colleagues for a promotion, stealing stuff, poaching clients. It directly harms individuals and the company.
Right. And the last one, personality trait deception.
Yeah, this is where the deception stems more from a specific coworker's character flaws. Maybe they're just chronically avoidant communicators or have seriously questionable morals. It often leads to others simply refusing to work with them, which creates bottlenecks and kills collaboration.
And the sources really stress that this lack of accountability isn't always just individuals failing. It can be literally baked into the system.
Like, companies often don't connect what gets done with how it gets done. So people with more power or who are better at playing the game get the credit, even if their methods were questionable. Or they barely did the work. It's easy to say, oh, just fix the system. But these issues run deep. They're often structural. When leadership prioritizes, say, short-term profits for execs and shareholders above the actual well-being of the people doing the work, that creates this massive dissonance.
Yeah.
Exactly. They say things like, people are our greatest asset, but then they make decisions that totally undermine that, like increasing manager workloads, outsourcing jobs, excessive monitoring. without investing in making teams actually work better together. It starts to feel like employees are seen as a cost, a risk to be managed, not an asset to be nurtured. It's a very mechanistic view. It stifles creativity, connection, real value creation.
So beyond the big picture, what about the person experiencing this? What are the warning signs if you suspect deception at work? That deception at work source lists 10 clues, right?
Yes, some really practical things to watch out for.
Okay, first, inconsistent information. Stories that change, conflicting details about projects, facts, deadlines. Liars struggle to keep things straight.
Makes sense. Second, vague communication. Getting evasive, non-committal answers when you ask direct questions. It's often a smokescreen.
Third, defensive reactions. If someone gets unusually touchy or hostile when questioned, it could be fear of getting caught.
Fourth, unusual body language. We talked about this personally, but at work too. Avoiding eye contact, fidgeting, closed-off posture. Classic signs of stress from lying.
Fifth, missing information. Key details, documents, data consistently unavailable. Might be an attempt to hide the truth, block progress.
Sixth, overly complex explanations. Making simple mistakes sound incredibly complicated, often a tactic to confuse and divert attention.
Seventh, evasion of accountability. Always blaming others, never owning their part in failures. That destroys trust fast.
Eighth, gossip and rumors. Spreading false stories to manipulate how people see things, undermine colleagues, or distract from their own issues.
Ninth, and this is serious, fabricated evidence. Making up documents, manipulating data. That's major deception with huge consequences.
And 10th, the most basic, blatant lies. Just straight-up falsehoods about important things like project status or qualifications creates a toxic environment instantly. Identifying dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work is critical to success.
Okay, that was a lot and pretty concerning. But the good news is we're not just stuck, right? We're not powerless against all this. The sources offer real hope, actual remedies and strategies.
Absolutely. Targeting approach, identify and dismantle. Dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work improves quality of life and functionality.
So the core remedy for dishonesty, it sounds almost too simple, is just honesty.
Fundamentally, yes. But simple doesn't mean easy. It needs to be a deliberate choice, a core ethic, something that guides every decision, every interaction. The sources consistently suggest that real, sustainable success, personally and professionally, belongs to those who operate with integrity.
And sincerity, too, right? That sense of being genuine, true to yourself, true to others, that's what builds real connections.
Exactly. And this is where leadership becomes absolutely crucial. You cannot overstate its importance. Honest leaders are, quite simply, essential for an honest workplace. It starts at the top. We saw the examples Enron, Wells Fargo. When leaders lie, it sends a message. Subordinates often follow suit, and the results can be catastrophic.
Yeah, the ripple effect is huge.
Immense. The source on the importance of sincerity in leadership makes it clear. Connection and trust, the absolute bedrock of leadership, are built only on sincerity. That means being authentic, not taking credit for other people's work, genuinely caring about your team's well-being, shown through things like actually listening. And crucially, it requires self-reflection, humility, owning mistakes quickly, openly, not covering them up, acting with respect. That Harvard Business Review finding nails it. High ethical and moral standards is the top trait people want in leaders. It builds confidence, loyalty, boosts productivity.
That power of trust, it keeps coming up, doesn't it? The sourcing call it the currency of teams. Makes working together possible, predictable, safe. It builds community, makes collaboration work. Without it, just anxiety, fear, people pulling back.
And it's so fragile, built over years, potentially destroyed in a moment. That quote about trust being truth-telling, truth-speaking, truth-living, and truth-loving, it captures that active commitment beautifully.
So what practical steps can everyone take, not just leaders?
Well, we can all play a part. First step, just talk about it. Broach the topic of honesty. Discuss how to foster openness and integrity in your team, your relationships. Leaders definitely need to develop clear ethical standards with honesty right at the center. And research shows even a simple reminder about ethical duties can nudge people towards better behavior.
Interesting, like a little prompt.
Exactly. Also, reducing those overly critical, punitive environments. If people feel constantly under attack or unfairly treated, they're way less likely to be honest when things go wrong. And that four-way test from Herbert Taylor is a great practical tool for anyone. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and friendships? Will it benefit all concerned? Dishonesty fails on every single count, doesn't it?
That's a fantastic filter. Okay, so beyond individual actions, how do we systematically build that culture of accountability? The sources had specific strategies here too, right?
Yes, a whole toolkit, really. First, establish clear goals and expectations. Vagueness breeds confusion. People need a clear roadmap to know what they're accountable for.
Makes sense. Second, lead by example. Managers have to walk the talk. Own their failures, meet deadlines, be transparent. Their actions set the tone.
Absolutely crucial. Third, communicate openly. Regular, honest updates on goals, progress, challenges. It builds trust and lets people solve problems proactively.
Fourth, provide regular feedback. Timely, constructive feedback, both positive and developmental, shows people where they stand and helps them course correct. Reinforces accountability.
Fifth, recognize and reward accountability. Don't just focus on mistakes. Publicly acknowledge when people take ownership. It encourages more of it.
Sixth, offer training and development. Give people the skills and knowledge they need to meet expectations and be accountable. Address those growth areas.
Seventh, use performance metrics. Clear, fair KPIs tracked openly help assess progress objectively and identify where support is needed. Data helps.
Eighth, and this is a tough one sometimes, follow through on consequences. Addressing shortcomings fairly and consistently shows accountability matters. But the emphasis should be on learning, not just punishment.
And ninth, arguably the most important for fostering honesty, foster psychological safety. Create an environment where people aren't afraid to admit mistakes, where challenges can be discussed openly without fear of blame. That's huge.
Designing methods to respond to dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work improves efficiency and success.
Define constraints, limitations, boundaries. Dishonesty, deception, and lack of sincerity in relationships and work can build effective routines.
And there were a few more ideas too, weren't there? About collaboration and mindset.
Yes, definitely. Like focusing on collaborative solutions. Getting the team involved in defining accountability fosters much more ownership. And actively choosing to move beyond blame. Adopting a curiosity mindset, as one source put it. Trying to understand why something happened, not just who to blame. Promotes support, not finger pointing.
I like that curiosity mindset.
That's powerful. Then there's the role of digital coaching and technology. Tools that offer personalized guidance or track progress can boost transparency and help people develop ethical skills. And ultimately, it all feeds into fostering a culture of continuous improvement. Always learning, always developing, always striving to be better, more accountable, more honest.
Wow. Okay, what an incredible journey through this whole landscape. Honesty, deception, sincerity. It's so clear these aren't just, abstract ideas. They're deeply, deeply woven into the fabric of our lives, personally, professionally, every single day.
Absolutely. And if you connect all the dots from our sources, the message is incredibly consistent, isn't it? Whether it's those tiny verbal tics signaling insincerity or the massive fallout from corporate fraud, a lack of truthfulness just corrodes everything. It breaks trust, hinders performance, causes real harm, psychological pain, huge financial losses, reputations utterly destroyed. We saw how one lie can spiral out of control, creating immense complexity, damaging people and entire organizations. That $3.5 trillion figure for workplace fraud is just staggering evidence of the scale.
It really is. And what struck me, too, is that it's not always just about individual bad apples. It's how the system itself, the culture, the incentives, the pressures can almost bake in that lack of accountability. But from the personal side, too, the excessive flattery, avoiding the tough talks, those early warning signs are there if we tune in. And they can make such a difference in navigating our relationships.
And the really positive takeaway, the good news in all this, is that we've been given a pretty solid toolkit for change. The constant theme. The remedy is active, intentional honesty, driven by ethical leadership. Supported by a culture that genuinely values accountability, it takes work. Leading by example, setting clear expectations, creating that psychological safety where mistakes are learning opportunities, giving feedback, providing training. It's all about actively building and protecting trust. That fragile yet incredibly powerful asset.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now as you think about all this? For me, it's a powerful reminder. Every interaction, every conversation, every choice, it's a chance, an opportunity to practice sincerity, to demand accountability, starting with ourselves. It's about consciously choosing to build those really strong, solid relationships, personal and professional, the kind that can actually handle challenges because they're built on genuine trust.
Which leaves us with perhaps a final question to ponder, a thought to take away. In a world where, let's be honest, insincerity and cutting corners can sometimes seem like the easier path, or even seem to be rewarded, how do we each actively choose, day after day, moment by moment, to be that source of truth, that pillar of integrity? Not just for our own peace of mind, but for the actual health, the vitality, the basic functionality of every single relationship, every team, every organization we're part of.